A woman cowered in terror in the treetops. She didn't dare breathe, because two terrifying zombies were below. They were lurking nearby. She watched as the zombies slowly wandered away. The woman secretly rejoiced, thinking she had escaped. However, there was a bird's nest in the tree. The mother bird happened to be returning to the nest at that moment. Mistaking the woman for a thief of her young, a mother's fierce protectiveness, the crow furiously flapped its wings, attempting to drive away the intruder. The two zombies were quickly attracted by the commotion. Although the woman quickly dealt with the crow, her hiding place had been revealed. A zombie quickly climbed up. The woman had no choice but to fight back. She grabbed a branch and leaped down, precisely piercing the zombie below. Immediately, she seized the opportunity and fled for her life. The zombie in the tree also jumped down, close behind, relentlessly pursuing her. In her panic, she fled to a dead end. The zombie behind her was closing in. Looking down at the overhanging snow cornice, the woman made a bold decision. This is a scene from the Norwegian zombie film, a classic scene from Dead Snow. A group of young people came to the snowy mountains for a ski holiday, but unexpectedly encountered terrifying Nazi zombies. 2 days prior, 4 boys and 3 girls, taking advantage of their school break, made plans to go to a snowy mountain ski resort together. But before that, one of their classmates, a girl named Sarah, had already arrived and was waiting at the cabin in the mountains. Unbeknownst to them, Sarah had already fallen victim to the zombies the night before. Soon, the group arrived at their destination. Because the road ahead was impassable for vehicles, they had to continue on foot, while Vidar drove the only snowmobile, towing their luggage and leading the way. However, when he arrived at the camp, he didn't find Sarah. He thought Sarah hadn't arrived yet, so he didn't think much of it. He quickly lit the fireplace to warm up, waiting for the others to arrive. Soon, the rest of the group also arrived at the cabin. The group rested for a while, and then began to play in the snow. Sometimes skiing, sometimes having snowball fights. They had a great time. Back at the cabin that evening, they played games. During this time, one of the girls suddenly felt the urge to urinate, so she went outside alone to relieve herself. But as she was just pulling up her pants, she heard a strange noise outside the toilet. She thought she had misheard, but on her way back to the cabin, she caught a glimpse of a figure darting through the woods. The girl hurried back to tell others about it, but no one believed her. Perhaps it was just some small animals. Vidar immediately opened the door and went to check. He didn't find anyone either, but just as he was about to return to the cabin, it turned out the old man was a resident from the village below. Passing by, he saw the lights on in the cabin, so he came to ask for a cup of coffee to warm himself. The group generously prepared a cup of coffee for the old man, but the old man poured himself a beer. Learning they were there to ski, the old man kindly warned them it would be best not to stay long in the mountains, because a terrifying event had once occurred there. Under their questioning gaze, the old man slowly recounted the history of the snowy mountains. During World War II, this place had been an important German transit point, used to cut off contact between Britain and Russia. It was initially believed the German army would coexist peacefully with the locals, but their colonel was a complete devil. Under his leadership, the German army began to abuse and beat civilians, and plundered all valuables from every household. Anyone who disobeyed was killed without mercy. Long suffering under such oppression, the civilians rose up in rebellion. They secretly united, forming a force of several thousand people. Using the most primitive weapons, they launched a surprise attack on the German army one night. In the end, most of the German army was annihilated. Only the colonel, with a few remaining soldiers, escaped into the mountains. People assumed they had perished in the mountains, but since then, no one dared to set foot there again. The old man's meaning was clear. This wasn't a place they should linger. However, this well-meaning warning was met with laughter from the group. Clearly, they didn't believe the old man. That's all I have to say. The old man didn't want to waste any more breath. He put on his coat and left the cabin without a word. He returned to his camp and leisurely enjoyed his dinner. Suddenly, a sound came from outside. The old man immediately became alert. He grabbed his weapon and stepped out of the tent. Unexpectedly, as soon as he shone his flashlight forward, he found a zombie. Before he could react, the zombie appeared and slashed his throat. With his last breath, he struggled back into the tent, but the zombie gave him no respite. It lunged at him and began a frenzied attack. Meanwhile, Wade had a nightmare. He dreamt of Sarah, covered in blood, appearing in the snow. A bad feeling instantly washed over him. So the next morning, upon discovering that Sarah still hadn't appeared, Wade decided to go look for her on his motorcycle. Before leaving, Wade specifically instructed Martin and his girlfriend that if he hadn't returned by tomorrow, they should drive to get help immediately. It seems the old man's words had quite an impact on Wade. After making his arrangements, Wade set off on his motorcycle. The others continued their merrymaking in the snow. Every so often, Wade would stop to rest and replenish his energy. until he unexpectedly discovered the old man's tent. Confused, Wade thought it was Sarah, but when he lifted the tent flap, he nearly died of fright. The old man's death was gruesome. Seeing the footprints on the ground, Wade didn't realize the danger. Instead, he followed the tracks, but after following them over several hills, he found no one. He could only search while calling out Sarah's name, but then, he stepped into a hole. He fell into a cave. Meanwhile, back at the cabin, the tired group began preparing dinner. When Fatty retrieved some beer from under the floorboards, he unexpectedly discovered a wooden box, but inside this seemingly ordinary box was a treasure trove of gold and silver. The gold coins were marked 1942. They were from the World War II era. Today, they are priceless. This discovery thrilled everyone. They began discussing how to divide the treasure. They dreamed of a luxurious future. After a few beers, Fatty felt the urge to urinate. He went outside alone to relieve himself, but some gold coins fell from his pockets. Watching Fatty leave, the woman followed him. As Fatty was about to relieve himself, she interrupted him and sat on him. Fueled by alcohol, the two of them, despite the cold, began a close encounter. 5 seconds later, a satisfied Fatty returned to the cabin, leaving the woman alone to continue relieving herself. Unbeknownst to them, danger was approaching. A withered hand picked up the coins on the ground. As the woman was about to leave, she caught sight of a terrifying face. She thought it was Fatty playing a prank. But the next second, the woman struggled out of the latrine. She was covered in filth. Her abdomen was severely injured. She screamed for help, but as soon as her companions heard her cries, a dark figure instantly snatched her away. When they opened the door to check, no one was outside. They called out repeatedly, but received no answer. Then they realized something was wrong. Immediately, armed with a shotgun, they went out to search separately, but they searched the latrine and the area around the cabin without finding the woman. The search yielded nothing, and they returned to the cabin. They were discussing whether to expand their search, but Mary, standing by the window, suddenly caught sight of the woman's head. Only now did they realize that something terrifying lurked outside. To prevent it from breaking in, they quickly barricaded all the doors and windows with furniture. Each person also held a knife for self-defense. Everyone looked out the window in terror. 2 zombies in German army uniforms then appeared. The cabin was no match for their attack. In the chaos, Fatty was unfortunately captured. The others tried to rescue him, but it was too late. They could only watch helplessly as he was dragged away. Fatty's death bought them some temporary safety. The 4 of them nervously waited for dawn. Martin thinks they can't just sit around and wait to die. Like this, sooner or later they'll be devoured by zombies. So, after discussion, they decided to leave. Worried about zombies outside, they decided to split up. 2 girls went to get a car and call for help. Martin and Roy stayed behind to wait for Weed's return, at the same time, making noise to attract the zombies. At this time, Weed finally woke up from his coma, and he struggled to dig out from the snowdrift, but he immediately made a torch. He lit the torch and re-entered the cave, because he sensed traces of human activity. Sure enough, when he went deeper into the cave, he immediately discovered something unusual. Many pieces of World War II German military equipment were scattered on the ground. It seems the old man wasn't lying, and Sarah, whom he had been searching for, had been brutally murdered by zombies, leaving no trace. Before he could grieve, a zombie suddenly appeared behind him. It kicked Weed out of the cave. Staring at the zombie in a German military uniform before him, Weed was shocked speechless. He was about to get up and run away, but was knocked down again by the zombie. Man and zombie instantly wrestled. The zombie bit down, but only bit down on down feathers. Weed fought back, biting back. He actually bit off a piece of rotting flesh from the zombie. Then, he seized the zombie's steel helmet. Quickly getting up, he counterattacked. Finally dealt with one zombie. Just as he caught his breath, another one appeared in the snow. A punch came, almost knocking Weed off the cliff. In a moment of crisis, Weed picked up a piece of wood and smashed it hard against the zombie's head. Then another kick, hanging it on a tree in front of him. The branch pierced the zombie's abdomen. However, he didn't notice. The zombie that had just been knocked down wasn't dead. It instantly lunged, taking Weed down the cliff with it. Luckily, at the last moment, Weed grabbed the zombie's intestines. That's why he didn't fall. But the zombie was still clinging to him, refusing to let go, and climbed up, biting his neck. At the critical moment, Weed unleashed unprecedented strength. He headbutted the zombie off the cliff. Then, he struggled his way back up. He treated his wounds simply. Weed found a heavy machine gun, and immediately sped off on his motorcycle towards the cabin. Meanwhile, Mary and the other girl were also in danger. On their way to the parking lot, they were attacked by zombies. In the chaos, they were separated. Her companion didn't watch where she was going while running away. She was ambushed by a zombie. When she woke up from her unconsciousness, she was horrified to find herself about to be eaten by a zombie. She watched helplessly as the zombie pulled out her intestines. With her last bit of strength, the woman secretly took a grenade from the zombie. Before dying, she took 2 zombies with her. Mary, not far away, witnessed this. The loud explosion also attracted the attention of the zombie horde. The guy with the binoculars appeared. Under his command, 2 zombies began tracking Mary. Mary, having a quick thought, hid in a tree. Zombies soon appeared below the tree. She held her breath, not daring to make a sound. However, there was a bird's nest in the tree. The mother bird was returning to the nest. Mistaking Mary for trying to steal its eggs, it fiercely attacked Mary. 2 zombies heard the commotion. Although Mary quickly dealt with the crow, her position was revealed. A zombie quickly climbed up. In this desperate situation, Mary had no choice but to fight to the death. She grabbed a branch and jumped down. She killed the zombie below. Mary seized the opportunity and fled. The zombie in the tree also pursued her relentlessly. Panicked, she fled to a dead end. The zombie behind her was closing in. Looking at the overhanging snow cornice below, Mary made a bold decision. Luckily, Mary escaped safely and dealt with the zombie trapped in the snowdrift. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Martin and Roy were under attack by zombies. They finally managed to make a Molotov cocktail, but the result? Seeing the cabin engulfed in flames, they had to relocate. They escaped to the nearby warehouse. It was fully equipped with tools. The 2 of them instantly felt more confident. After selecting their preferred tools, they swaggered out. They decided to fight the zombies to the death. A large horde of zombies roared and charged towards them. The 2 showed no fear. They also picked up their weapons and met the attack head-on. After a bloody battle, in the end, Martin and Roy wiped out all the zombies. However, the fight wasn't over. Immediately afterward, another large wave emerged from the woods. The 2 assumed their fighting stances, ready to continue the battle. Vate, riding his motorcycle, finally arrived. Next up was Vate's personal performance show. He aimed at the horde and pulled the trigger. He instantly wiped out a large number. Running out of bullets, he charged forward on his motorcycle. He engaged in close-quarters combat with the zombies. After a series of maneuvers, the battle was quickly over. The 2 onlookers were stunned. But before he could show off for more than 3 seconds, several zombies suddenly appeared and grabbed him. They proceeded to rip him apart. They watched helplessly as their companion was torn to pieces. Their anger instantly reached its peak. They fought like possessed gods of war. They slaughtered the zombies left and right. Martin was especially bloodthirsty. At that moment, a hand landed on his shoulder. Martin instinctively turned and swung his knife, but upon seeing who it was, he froze. It wasn't a zombie, but his girlfriend, Mary, who had barely escaped the zombies, who had barely escaped the clutches of the zombies. At that moment, the colonel finally appeared with a few zombies. Martin had no time for grief. He raised his shotgun again and shot the zombies, but he made a mistake. He pulled the trigger, venting all his anger on the zombies. But due to limited ammunition, in the end, he was unfortunately knocked down by a zombie. During the struggle, his arm was bitten, although Roy successfully saved him. But based on his experience from watching zombie movies, once bitten by a zombie, he would also turn into one of them. So, to survive, he had to cut off his arm. He endured the excruciating pain and disinfected the wound. But unexpectedly, there was a zombie lurking beneath his feet. Martin was instantly enraged. He killed the zombie to avenge his friend. However, this part couldn't be amputated. Roy also advised him not to be impulsive. Deal with the immediate problem first. The 2 thought only the colonel remained. 2 against 1, they had a good chance of winning. But with a roar from the colonel, the situation reversed again. In the snow, countless zombies were hidden. They awoke at the colonel's call. The 2 looked at each other, their faces ashen. They knew they had no chance of winning. They could only choose to flee. But during their escape, the colonel suddenly attacked. He flashed forward and killed Roy instantly. Martin, in front, clearly saw the colonel take an item from Roy's body. He instantly understood. The colonel's target was the gold and silver treasure in the chest. So, Martin immediately ran back to the wooden house, which had been burned down. He found the chest in the ruins. Seeing this, the colonel, who had caught up, didn't attack. This further confirmed Martin's guess. He quickly returned the chest to the colonel. In the end, Martin successfully escaped. Night fell, and he finally found a car. However, as he took out the keys and prepared to drive away, a gold coin suddenly fell into the car. Martin picked it up and looked. He instantly realized something was wrong. Sure enough, the next second, in the end, the entire group was wiped out. As a zombie movie, Dead Snow is highly recommended. Besides the thrilling zombie chase scenes, it also includes many hilarious, Moments of dark humor. Although a group of young people going on an adventure is a bit of a glitch, the creative combination of Nazis and zombies is truly refreshing. At the same time, the film also teaches us a lesson: don't take ill-gotten gains. Otherwise, it will bring unnecessary trouble.